Hello, everybody. Welcome to Cosi Talks. I am just getting a few things set up here. Couple minutes late because I'm still trying out some even more new audio and tech equipment that my team sent me, which I'm so excited to try out this evening. So guys, I'm going to go ahead and give you a couple minutes to jump on board. For those of you who are watching the replay, thank you so much again for your support in continuing to watch the show after it's over. Please put replay in the comment section. If you have any questions for me, go ahead and put it into the comment section. I do go back and I check my shows after they've closed down to make sure I'm not catching any or missing any questions there. So I see a few of you jumping on board. Hey there, Eric. Eric is watching me from my YouTube channel. So just as a reminder, I do have a YouTube channel. It is chock full of videos, guys. I would really love it if you would go and consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Look through some of the videos, make comments, let me know what you like, what you don't like, what you'd like to see more of. Let's see who else we got on board. Hey, Pam, good to see you. We got Rita coming in from Michigan. We've got Compadre there. Excited for tonight's show. Good to have you here, Compadre. So, guys, those of you who are new to the show, just so you know, I love to know who's out there and I'd love to know who's listening. So don't be shy. Let me know who you are, where you're from, and what is in your drink. All right, we've got Andrea. I haven't seen you in a few weeks. I've missed you. Andrea is like my resident OT, and I love having her on board. We've got Emily coming in from Central PA. Thanks for joining in again, Emily. We've got Mark S. It's another Cosi. Yes, it's another CV extravaganza. And I see, Mark, there must not be any basketball going on. We got Benny Cortez coming in. We got, hey, it's Gerard, man. Oh, now it's a party. It's a party now. All right, we got Johnny V from Poughkeepsie, New York in the Cosi Talks house drinking his Panera lemonade in his cup. We got Chuck coming in from the YouTube channel. Ben Gregory. Howdy, Ben Gregory from Texas. Well, I'm glad you're feeling better, Andrea, and I'm glad you're back. We got Comadre on the show. We've got Emily. Okay, so Emily, ooh, you got Juicy Peach tonight. That sounds, I can't pronounce that first word, but it sounds very interesting, Emily. Emily, I want an update on how things are going with your prosthesis. Let me know how things are going. Guys, we've got a nice crew on board that y'all jumped on quickly this evening, and I appreciate that. We got Scott coming in from West Virginia, got your liner wand prize. Oh, good, you got it. Haven't used it yet. Hey, I definitely want to know how you like it. Guys, we had the liner wand on the show a couple of weeks ago. Really a little treasure of a company in amputee world, right? So if you didn't see that show, go back and watch it. It's on my YouTube channel. Kyle Stepp was my special guest, and so was the owner of the liner wand, Liz. She's an amazing human being. But the liner wand, it's really, I've had several viewers start commenting me on how they've been using the liner wand. So long and short of it, it's a wand. It comes in a little kit, and you break the wand, and it has like a little liquid in it. It's called an apocrine, I think is what they call it, the solution. And basically, you paint your liner with it, and it helps draw out all the garbage and stuff that collects in a liner, and it puts a specialized coating to prevent the odor, and it lasts like 2 weeks. You only have to do this like once every 2 weeks. And then when you take your shower, you just do the gentle washing in between. But apparently it's a huge game changer when it comes to the odor and the bacteria in the liner itself. And I've had several of you comment about it. So I would highly encourage you, look them up. You can Google the liner wand and you'll find them everywhere. Yeah. And guys, if you would like a discount on the liner wand, message me privately and I would be more than happy to connect you with the team and they can provide you with a discount. And if anything, and guys, I'm looking to 2 different screens right now. You'll have to excuse me. I am using some new hoopy scoopy equipment. So I'm getting used to looking at 2 different screens while I'm doing this. Let's see. All right. Wow. Lots of comments that came in. All right, so guys, let me just go ahead and officially introduce myself, especially for those who are here for the first time this evening. Welcome. My name is Cosi Belloso. I'm the physical therapist amputee specialist here in hot, sticky Florida, Mosquito, Florida. I'm on my front porch again this evening. I just had so much fun doing it last week on the front porch. I thought I'd change it up again this evening as well. We just had a huge rainstorm, so I'm really hoping it doesn't rain again because I got all my nice equipment out here. Okay, so we've got Michael Davies on board. Hey, Michael, how are you doing with everything going on? We got Tom. Oh, it's always a pleasure to see you, Tom. We got Jeff coming in with his apple juice, rushing to try and get a socket ready for before heading to Empower Fest. I so want to go to that. Rhonda coming in from Missouri. All right, we've got a lot of people on board. Harsh, hey. So Mark is asking, is chlorinated water bad for your liner? I have a gel. I think any of the manufacturers are going to tell you you don't want to like soak your liner in chlorinated water. Here in Florida, obviously, water is our life, whether we like going to the beach or we like going to the pool a lot, and it's a year-round thing. So usually I just tell my patients if for whatever reason they're going into the water with their full leg on and their liner on, and some folks do, just rinse it off. Okay, rinse it off the minute you get out of the pool. Just take it off, rinse it with plenty of fresh water to get the chlorine off. Because yeah, chlorine, I mean, you just see how it affects your hair. Those of us with long hair, you know, you go to the pool often enough and the chlorine just kind of fries your hair. So yeah, I can only imagine it's going to do some damage to your liners as well, the inner part of that liner. So my recommendation is just rinse it off really, really well. And then when you get home that evening, just give it that gentle cleanser, whatever gentle cleanser that you use on your liner. Make sure you definitely use it that evening. All right. So Emily says she's going back for a refit on the prosthesis on the 30th. Okay. Oh, is it solstice? Is tonight the summer solstice? I've got all sorts of little bugs flying around right now. They're all being drawn to like the ring light. All right. So Tom's going to be at the Empower Fest as well. Man, I'd love to. I'd love to. All right. So Jane says she got her BK side casted yesterday and AK this morning. I am so excited to hear about this, Jane. So guys, on my social media, so every week I've been just kind of trying something new, just asking a new question, new topic of the week, just to see, you know, what it is that you all want to hear about. So this week's question was, okay, what is the most important muscle group for amputees to strengthen? And I gave 3 choices. I said the core, the glutes, or the biceps. So I'm going to do a quick Cosi poll. Which one do you guys think? I love this one because I got a lot of discussion from this one, and I had lots of folks jumping on board, including some clinicians giving their opinion about it, which I love that. See, Jesse says, had a good visit with my new prosthetist this afternoon, and I have a new hope in walking. I am so happy to hear that. Jesse, I don't recognize your name. I don't know if it's your first time watching the show or maybe the first time commenting, but welcome. I am excited. It's always... yeah, exciting when you get that first leg again. So Pam thinks core. Jane thinks, whoop, let's see. Jane thinks brain. I like that. Mark says core. Andrea says butt. The Scott says core. We got glutes. We got brain. We got Francis saying hello. We've got Rhonda with the core and Emily with glutes. So I guess I kind of set you guys up for a mistake because when I wrote those choices down, I'm just like, it's a really hard choice between, obviously it's not biceps. Brain, yes, absolutely. When it comes to the most important muscle for an amputee to use, definitely the brain and the heart. From a physiological and anatomical standpoint, it's a close battle between the glutes and the core. If I had to pick one, I'm going to go with glutes. Okay. And that's just because whenever I have someone come in and they're struggling with their gait and I test everything, yes, they have core weakness, but the glutes is where we have to really hit it hard. And guys, it's not to say that I ignore the core. That's kind of a funny rhyme. No, I don't. I work on the core a lot. And like I said, if glutes is number 1, core is like right there underneath it. It doesn't need like 2, it's like 1.1. Okay. So it's really, really, really important. So let's talk a little bit about these glutes. Oh, Jesse, it's your second week here. Well, welcome. I'm glad you're here. We've got Sandra saying from Gainesville with water in her cup. So let's just talk about the glutes. Those of you guys who've been with me for a while, you hear me say the phrase, it's all about the butt, right? It's just kind of to get your attention, okay? So when I talk about glutes, I'm talking about 3 primary muscles. I'm talking about the glute max, the glute medius, and the glute minimus. And they have different functions, right? So the gluteus maximus, like that's the one that covers, that's the one on top. That's the one that you're sitting on right there, right? So its job is to help extend the hip, right? It also just helps power your gait. This is where your power comes from, okay? So those of you who are struggling with walking longer distances, those of you who feel like you get fatigued very easily, a big part of that is weakness from the glute max, okay? Now, if you were to peel off the glute max, okay, Underneath it, you have a whole bunch of muscles sitting there too. And you've got the gluteus medius and the gluteus minimus muscles. And those two kind of work together. Their job is to stabilize the pelvis. Okay, so even though they're called glutes, they have little different functions. Okay, so guys, I'm going to share with you one of my favorite, well, not one of my favorite, actually, I have a lot of favorite exercises, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to go ahead and change my screen because I'm going to share with you one of the exercises, and bear with me for just a moment, guys. One of the exercises from my program that focuses on, did I do this right? Yay, it's coming up. That focuses on, here's my program, logging in. Okay, here we go. So let's look at one of the exercises for the glute maximus. Okay, we're going to do it for an above the knee amputee. We're going to go into phase 1. All right, so those of you who have your books or those of you who have the program, this is all within the book and the program. Let's go with, ooh, I like this one. Yeah. I have to mute myself. Unmute here. Sorry, guys. This exercise is the straight leg raise in the prone position or lying on your belly. Now, not everyone is comfortable doing this exercise because they're not always comfortable lying on the belly. If you're not able to tolerate this position, that's okay. There's other exercises in this program that will help target these gluteal muscles that we're trying to activate right now. If you are able to tolerate lying on your belly, you might also want to place a small towel roll under your belly to take some of the strain off of your lower back. Go ahead and lower your head down all the way. There we go. So Jonathan is already in a really great position. As always, I like to encourage folks to try to do these exercises with the prosthesis. If it doesn't work out, we have a modified video showing you how to do this exercise without your prosthesis. In this case, Jonathan has his leg locked, so it's going to be nice and straight. Now for this exercise, all he's going to do is lift his leg straight back up in the air. Go ahead, lift up. And as you can see, he doesn't have to lift it very far. And then back down again. Lift up. And as you can see, he's holding it, activating the glute muscle nicely. If he were lifting it too high, he would actually be hitting his lower back, and we don't want that. And bring it back down again. Take note of your form. You want to make sure that when you're lifting your leg straight back, that it's not swinging out to the side. If you are, that might mean you have a little tightness here in your hip. All right, folks, go ahead, give it a try. Okay. Guys, did that come out okay? Can you guys give me just a quick yes? I was able to hear the audio on that video. Like I said, I'm working off of 2 screens right now, and I'm just trying to figure out, make sure I did everything correctly. So let's see. Let me catch some of these comments that were coming in. We got Marianne, there you are, darling. Good to see you. I know, Jesse, like glutes, everybody thinks core. And like I said, core is right there, but the glutes get ignored a lot, right? Core is very popular because in pop culture nowadays, we see it all in the fitness, and it's the sexy 6-pack, and we hear about strengthening your core and everything. And it's incredibly important. I am not taking away the importance of strengthening your core. But when it comes to amputee gait, I really, really focus a lot on glute strengthening for my below the knee and for my above the knee patients. Okay. So let's see. Yeah, so if you're fatiguing quickly, that's definitely, I can almost with my eyes closed say, yeah, you probably have some weakness in your glutes. And Jesse, that's a really fantastic question. And it's going to help me segue into the next part about my talk. So just give me one moment there. Drew said, I thought my glutes were weak, but then my prosthetist finally did an adjustment after a year of complaining, and it helped a lot, made sure the socket is right if you are getting stronger, but nothing is helping. Yes, and that's an excellent point. When it comes to sussing out what is going on with the gait pattern in an amputee, you have to look at it from, I say, the physical therapist perspective and the prosthetist perspective. From a physical therapy, we tend to look more at the human. We tend to see, okay, what deficiencies are going on in the body, what impairments are going on in the body that need to be addressed. And the prosthetist is going to be saying, what adjustments have to be made to the prosthesis, okay? Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's the other. A lot of times it's a little bit of both. And this is why I really stress the importance of having such good communication between the prosthetist and the physical therapist. We have different lens that we look through, but when you have all that input coming in, you can really, really determine the origin of the problem. So yes, if I have a patient that I've been strengthening their glutes and things are not improving, then I'm definitely going to give the prosthetist a call and say, hey, I think there's something going on here with the socket or with the alignment, something that perhaps I'm missing. Let's look at this patient together because they're getting stronger, right? But something still isn't working out, definitely. And the same thing with the prosthetist. If a prosthetist keeps making adjustments, but they're not communicating with the therapist in terms of saying, hey, I think this patient needs to be strengthened. I don't care how many adjustments you make, patient's not going to get any better with their walking. Okay. And I've seen that happen a lot from both ends, both sides. Okay. And Drew says, if your back is sore, most likely the leg was too high or too low. Low back pain, that's another Pandora's box when it comes to, and maybe that'll be my topic for next week's discussion, because that's a whole nother show right there as to the different types of causes of back pain. But yes, Drew, you are right. One of the very common causes of back pain is just uneven leg length right there. Okay. So yes, you guys could hear it. Thank you guys. Thank you for letting me know. So Emily, if your leg tends to swing out on some of the exercises, it could be one of two things. It could just be that your positioning is incorrect and you just have to cue yourself, right? The other part of it is if there's a lot of muscle weakness, other muscles are going to try to compensate the movement, right? And they're going to make your legs swing out. Also, if you have tightness in the hip, right? So if I see a patient that their leg keeps going out for that particular exercise, especially if they're not even wearing their prosthesis, then I'm going to think, they probably have some hip abductor tightness of the gluteus medius, which is very common in above the knee amputees. Okay. So yeah, these are all things. Now, guys, that exercise I showed you, it's really simple. Some of you are probably going, yeah, that looks really, really easy. But the devil's in the details, okay? If you want to try this exercise at home, again, you can do it with or without your prosthesis on. If you are brand new and this is your first time strengthening, I would recommend doing it with your prosthesis off, just because it's like a lot of extra weight to have that prosthesis on, okay? And that way you can kind of focus on really activating that muscle properly. Okay, and keep in mind, all those little details I mentioned in the video, it really makes a difference, okay? Make sure you have a small towel roll under your stomach so that your back is not super arched, right? Make sure that when you're lifting your residual limb back, that you're not really lifting it far up, because then the movement's coming from the back and it's not coming from the glute. So a lot of times I'll have my patients take their fingers and put it right on their butt, right on the meat of that muscle, right? So as they're lifting their residual limb, they'll feel that muscle contracting. And if they're not feeling that muscle contracting, it means the movement is coming from the lower back. Does that make sense, guys? A lot of people think that they have to do New York City Rockettes kicks, way far back to get that muscle. And it's oh, no. If you do that exercise properly 10 times, trust me, you're going to be feeling it. And it's going to be very, very effective at getting that glute working. Another reason why I like simple exercises like this, it allows your brain to focus on activating just that muscle. Okay. Now in my program, that particular exercise is in phase 1. So this is for the folks who have not been doing any strengthening. Sometimes even my higher athletes are doing this exercise because they neglected to build that muscle strength. So I'll put them back in a phase 1 exercise, okay? And then later on in phase 2 and in phase 3 exercises, we build upon that strength. And then I move you through different movement patterns and get the muscle to start working with other muscle groups. But in the beginning, I want the brain to be able to activate just that muscle, okay? Again, devil's in the details. I cannot stress that enough. All right. Mark says, wow, Cosi, I remember when you couldn't even turn on your computer. I know. This country bumpkin's come a long way with her tech equipment, and I can't take any credit for it. It's because I have an amazing tech team that they basically got me this equipment and sent it to me, and they made me learn it. So thank you to my wonderful tech team. All right. Kelly says, I am a below the knee amputee. Kelly, welcome. I don't recognize your name, so I don't know if this is your first time, but welcome. And I'm new to using a prosthetic leg. My PT is asking me to put all my weight into my amputated leg, and I'm finding it very difficult. Do you have any suggestions on what I could do to make this easier for myself? I'm definitely feeling overwhelmed. Kelly, that is like the perfect question. And it goes along with Jesse's question about how glutes are part of your core. Glutes are technically not a part of your core, but they work with it. They have to learn to work with it. Okay. So we're going to get to that in a moment. And Kelly, so the exercise I just showed you was for the gluteus maximus muscle, right? So remember I told you there's gluteus medius and gluteus minimus. The purpose of the gluteus maximus is to power, right? That gives you your battery to get you going. The gluteus medius and minimus, they are there to help stabilize your pelvis. Now, Kelly, what your physical therapist is doing, I'm actually really glad to hear it. There's not a whole lot of PTs out there who have amputee experience. And sometimes their approach with new amputees is not correct because they're pulling upon their other specialties that don't necessarily apply to amputee. So the fact that your physical therapist is trying to get you to put weight into your prosthesis is a very, very, very good thing. Now, Kelly, I do have in my program, and again, guys, let me just put that website down for you. Okay. So for my newcomers especially, guys, go ahead and save that website that I just sent you. That's where I have my entire program. In that program, I do have what I call the foundational exercises. So the very first exercises that I give my patients when they just have their prosthesis. And several of those exercises are geared towards getting you to get used to putting weight into your prosthesis. Okay, Kelly? So take a look at the program. And in that program specifically, the weight shifting exercises that I do, they're geared towards getting you accustomed to that because yes, you have to trust that prosthesis, but you're not going to do it in one big swoop, right? You have to kind of retrain your brain little by little to accept that that prosthesis is now your leg. Okay. And that's a big thing. Who was I talking to? I was talking to one of my colleagues. Oh, good gravy. Having a senior moment. I was talking to one of my colleagues the other week, and we were talking about how physical therapy with amputees is very similar to physical therapy with people who have had a stroke or a traumatic brain injury. And here's why. People who have had a stroke or traumatic brain injury, sometimes their brain does not recognize the leg that was paralyzed. Like they will look down at that leg and their brain cannot process that that leg belongs to them. It's a very strange phenomenon to see this, right? And it's very confusing to the patient. So as a physical therapist, we have to train the brain. We have to trick the brain into realizing that that leg is in fact a part of their body. And it's very similar to when you're learning to use a prosthesis. Your brain's looking down at that prosthesis going, that's not mine. I'm not using that. I'm not putting my weight into that. And we have to train the brain again and trick the brain. Okay, so let me backtrack. Let's look at the gluteus medius and minimus, the stabilizer muscles for the pelvis. So I'm going to try again. I'm going to share one of the exercises from my program. So bear with me for a moment. Okay. And this is one I don't think I've shared before here on the show, but it's one that I do a lot. So you can find this in both the below the knee and the above the knee program. And I believe it's in the phase 2. Whoops, my fault. It's in phase 1. Sorry, guys. Bear with me for just a moment. Here we go. All right, so let's take a look at this one. And let me mute myself so you guys can hear it. So these are the tennis ball exercises. I really like these because, again, you can modify these exercises depending on the fitness level and also depending on the level of amputation. So as you can see, I have Jonathan here with a chair on this side. If you feel like you need more balance, you can add a chair on the other side. We're going to put the tennis ball underneath his sound foot. Okay. And for this exercise, he's going to be tightening that side of his hips. He's not going to be popping his hip out. We want those muscles working, and we want the weight into that prosthesis. That is the goal with this exercise. So he's going to go ahead and start by moving the tennis ball forward and backward with his toes. And as you gain more confidence doing this exercise, you can make the movement just a little bit faster. Start off by doing it for 10 seconds, give yourself a break, try it again. If you need more support, add the chair. If you need more of a challenge, take away a hand. Okay, try it out. Okay, did I get it right on 2 occasions, guys? Did you guys see that one? I'm just excited about being able to do this. Okay, so guys, let's talk a little bit about that exercise. Pretty much everybody who comes into my clinic, that's part of what I consider to be my foundational exercises. Now, Kelly, for someone like yourself who's a beginner, that's not the first exercise. There's a couple of exercises before that that prep you for this exercise. But as you can see, the whole point of that exercise is to get you to put weight into that prosthesis, right? And in order to keep yourself nice and straight, you have to activate the gluteus medius and minimus muscles. You have to activate those pelvic stabilizing muscles, right? And as you can see, Jonathan, my model, he's an amazing athlete. He bikes 30 to 50 miles a day as an above the knee amputee. So he was in really good shape when we did that video. And that exercise, we had to do a couple of takes on that. He was feeling that exercise. And as you can see, he's moving that tennis ball fairly cautiously. Okay. So you can see that even someone like him who has a lot of exercise and who does a lot of things, if you don't specifically target those muscles, right, they're not going to get their max potential in strength. And this is a very simple exercise, something that you can do at home. For those of you who are just starting out, I recommend you hold with 2 hands, like a kitchen counter and the kitchen island, or 2 really sturdy chairs. And you just place your foot on the top of that ball and you just do slow movements forward and backwards. And then I have other videos here showing how to progress that, moving the ball side to side, moving the ball in circles, doing a whole bunch of fun stuff afterwards after you get stronger with that. Okay. But this exercise in particular, this helps with gluteus medius and minimus strengthening. It helps with pelvic stabilization. It's helping you put weight in that prosthesis, activating those proprioceptors, right? Those proprioceptors that let you know where your body is in space. Okay. So here, let me see some of these comments that have been coming in. So Emily says, I'm using a strap to do some of the exercises because I can't do them independently because of the spina bifida. And that's perfectly fine. Guys, these exercises have been modified. These are all exercises that I do as a runner, as an able-bodied runner. These are exercises that physical therapists all around the world for decades have used on our patients, okay? The exercises haven't changed in the terms of what they're supposed to do. We modify them according to the needs of our patient, right? And in the case of an amputee, we modify to accommodate the residual limb and a prosthetic device, right? So if you have to use a strap because you have additional weakness, then do it. Yes, that's what your physical therapist is there for, right? Okay. So Sean says, been having a lot of lower back pain, time for a new prosthesis. So I think that settles it, guys. I think next week's episode is going to have to focus on low back pain. Let me know with a thumbs up or thumbs down if you like that idea. Let me know in the comments section. Hey, Felicia, glad you could join in. Let's see. So gluteus maximus ran Rome back in the day. I was waiting for that. Mark. I'm not surprised it was you, buddy. Jorge, welcome aboard. Jane says, as an AK and BK, which book would serve me best? So guys, I will say my program is designed for above the knee and it's designed for below the knee. I don't have one specifically for bilaterals yet. Okay. And that is my next goal, that if I can just get certain funding that I'm hoping will come through, then that's my next plan on how to expand the program, is to expand it to my bilateral audience. In the meantime, I've had some of you bilaterals who have bought the book and the program, and you're figuring out how to modify these exercises, and I'm happy to help you as best as I can over the computer. If you are a bilateral mixed, meaning you have one side AK, one side BK, my recommendation would be to buy the AK book, because that's the one, as an AK, your AK side theoretically is the more challenging side. And I've mentioned this in the past before, when I work with bilateral mixed amputees, I tend to focus, if the AK side is the weaker side, I tend to focus on the AK side, and the BK just kind of comes along for the ride when it comes to gait training. It's almost like the BK side is intact, almost. So it's interesting. You focus on the AK, and the BK just kind of comes along for the ride and does the work. So it's kind of interesting. So Emily says, is that similar to if a person uses leg braces with the brain recognizing the leg and the brace? Not quite. So Emily, let me just clarify that example, because it's really fascinating. Like when I started doing some of my training with neurology, and I would see this happen. I remember I went to a patient room and the person had a stroke, and they had paralysis on one side of their body, let's just say it was the right side of their body. And the patient was lying in the bed, and I was introducing myself. Hi, I'm Cosi. I'm your physical therapist. We're here to do some movement today. Let's see if we can get you up and sitting up. And the patient was just looking at their right arm, just in the bed like that. And they just had the most puzzled look on their face. And the patient just looked at me and said, whose arm is that? And it just, like, for a moment, because I was a brand new therapist, so I was just like, well, it's your arm. And they're like, that's my arm? Like, it's their arm, but their brain cannot process that it belongs to them, the body recognition, right? So retraining the brain started in that moment. And I said to the patient, yes, wiggle your fingers. And they were able to wiggle their fingers just a little bit. And I said, follow your arm, and you can see that it's attached to your body. Right? So that's kind of what I mean. With bracing, it's not so much, because the brain just recognizes, okay, there's something sitting on top of my leg, but the brain is still able to recognize the leg as its own. It's when it's a completely foreign object, like a prosthesis, taking the place of what used to be the anatomical leg. That's when the brain gets confused. Let's see. Harsh says, I remember you made us do it in gait training, right? Right? It's like, these exercises have been around since my profession probably not since my profession began. My profession began in World War I. I mean, I've seen videos of these exercises as far as the 1950s, 1960s, right? So, basically the human body hasn't changed too much since then, okay? And how we work these muscles, it's more about the form, the consistency, and doing the proper work with it, okay? So let's talk a little bit about the core. Let's go back to that. Oh, Harvey says, I've done this, but I didn't understand the why. And guys, if there's anything that you take away from this show, you know that I love explaining the why behind it. Maybe it's because I have 4 kids and I'm constantly answering why questions. But it's also like, if your therapist hands you 10 exercises and they just tell you, do these exercises 10 times a day, 10 repetition 3 times a day, and they don't explain the why, I wouldn't do the exercises. It's like, well, okay, this just seems like busy work. Okay. For me, you do need to know, it's your body. You need to know what's going on. You need to understand the why behind it. Okay. It's going to get you a better understanding of what's going on. It's going to give you that extra motivation to say, yeah, if I want this to improve, then this is what I have to do for it. So yeah, definitely. And ask your therapist why, guys. A lot of times, sometimes as clinicians, we're so busy trying to make sure we get everything in there, we forget to explain, and it's happened to me at times where I have a patient who will stop me and just say, explain to me again why we're doing this. Okay. Ask those questions. Okay. So yes, Stephen, that is the exercise to stabilize the residual limb, the tennis ball one, okay? Because there you're activating those pelvic stabilizers, the gluteus medius and the gluteus minimus specifically, right? Oh, Van Gregory, I am so happy that you are using the program. I am so excited. I hope I get to meet you someday and just kind of get a chance to do a little running with you someday. I'd love to do that at some point. Okay. So, Kelly, my pleasure. And Kelly, by the way, I know you're new to the show. That's the whole point of the show, is for you to ask me your questions. I'm going to put my email down. I think we have quite a few new people on board this evening. So guys, just for those of you who are new to the show, this show is for you. It's for those of you who are amputees, those of you who are clinicians, those of you who are caregivers and family members for amputees as well. So there's my email. I answer all of my emails. I don't have an assistant. I asked for one for Christmas, but I didn't get one. So I answer all my emails. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them to me. Do physical therapists do wound care? Somebody told me they do. Yes. And actually, that was one of my favorite rotations to do. Yes, physical therapists do wound care. Now, do you see a lot of physical therapists doing wound care? No, it's not necessarily one of the most popular specialties. And I'll just kind of dive into that for a brief moment. Burn care, amputee care, and wound care, I would say, are the three specialties. If I had to name off the top of my head, right? I don't have any fancy research. This is just me being a PT for over 20 years. If I had to name the top three specialties that are the least popular, meaning there's not as many physical therapists specializing in this, it's burn care, wound care, and amputee care. Don't ask me why. And it turns out those are my three favorites. Like, those are my top three favorites. And you'll find, like, when you talk to PTs who specialize in these areas, for whatever reason, we have experience with all of them. So I don't know if it's because you see a lot of amputees in burn care units sometimes, and because obviously if you're working in burn care and amputees, you do a lot of wound care. But yes, we do wound care, and depending on what state you live in will determine how much of the wound care the physical therapist is allowed to do. Okay. But yes, that's something that I did a lot, and I enjoyed it very much when I was working in the hospitals doing the wound care. Let's see. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to catch up with these comments. My pleasure, Jesse. Hope you can come again. Oh, Andrea says, yes, not recognizing the limb, has seen it. And also, who is in bed with me? I know. And it's one of those things that they teach you this in physical therapy school, that the brain does not recognize the body. But until you see someone that this is happening to, you're just like, oh my goodness, this is really intense. And it's amazing how the brain works. Good, Susan. So you're watching from the YouTube channel. And guys, just a little housekeeping note. I do broadcast from my YouTube channel. It's under Cosi Talks. Some people find it a little easier to find me that way. All right. Sean says, we're trying to get my prosthetist to watch your videos. I want to get an adjustable socket, and they really don't like that idea. Sean, I appreciate you plugging there for me. When it comes to adjustable sockets, there's some prosthetists out there that they're a little hesitant. Usually I find that if a prosthetist is hesitant, it might be because they just don't know as much about it. And again, if it's not my patient, I don't like to interfere. I like to be respectful of other clinicians' decisions. But Sean, one of the things that you can just talk to him about is, obviously if you're looking at an adjustable socket, it probably means you're frustrated with the limb volume management, that your limb is changing volume and you're having to add and remove socks a lot during the day. And you can mention this to your prosthetist and just say how it's impacting the quality of your life. Talk to it from a humanitarian perspective, kind of thing. And you might, and again, I recommend people, I was like, I love Click Medical's adjustable socket system, their RevoFit. That's my personal and professional favorite. So I just always tell people, you know what, tell your prosthetist to have a look at the website. And the Click Medical team is a wonderful team. They are so centered on customer service. Whenever there's been a little issue or whenever there's been a question, I can refer folks to the team, and they have been wonderful about handling it. So if your prosthetist has questions, their team is very accessible. And then on the website itself, there's a lot of information for clinicians. They call it the Click Academy. I've taken all the videos and watched all the courses myself. And it's a device that it's very teachable. Very, very teachable to use. Another thing, Sean, a lot of prosthetists sometimes think, because there are other adjustable socket companies out there where you have to go to that particular clinic to get the adjustable socket, right? So some prosthetists are a little hesitant because they want to make the socket. And with the Click Medical RevoFit system, your prosthetist is still making your socket, okay? They're just using the kit to build the adjustability into the socket. So I hope that makes sense. So these are some of the things that when I've talked to prosthetists who are a little bit like about adjustable socket, these are some of the issues. These are some of the talking points that I discuss with them. All right, let's see. All right, so hey, Pat says, as an AK, I've mentioned before, when I go through PT after first getting my prosthesis, my PT mantra was squeeze your butt, squeeze your butt, squeeze. But yes, it really is. Because guys, you know, our brains and our muscles are on autopilot. Like when you're walking prior to losing your leg, when you walked, you didn't tell yourself, okay, foot forward, now squeeze glute, now move forward, move your pelvis in this direction. You just walked, right? Obviously, when you have a prosthesis and an amputation, all that kind of goes out the window and you have to relearn it again. So yeah, sometimes you have to like activate and tell yourself, squeeze your glute, activate this, tighten up your transverse abdominis, right? Until it becomes autopilot again. And that's another thing I tell my patients is, yes, in the beginning, you're looking down at your feet. In the beginning, you're having to think of 40 million things at once just to take a few simple steps. But if you practice the right thing and you develop the good habits and the good foundation, the autopilotness of walking will come back. It does come back. Okay. Emily says, what about lymphedema therapists? I've seen OT and PT for lymphedema, but they're hard to come by and they don't always work with non-cancer related lymphedema. Yes, lymphedema is another one that you don't see as many. Part of it is because the specialty and the training for it is very, very intense. I remember there was a point where I was very interested in taking the lymphedema course because I had done a lot of wound care, and lymphedema and wound care kind of go hand in hand. And I was looking at getting that specialty certificate, but it was a 2-week full-time course. And at the time I was already a new mom, so I couldn't just take 2 weeks of my life and go spend taking a course and then the additional training afterwards. But yes, lymphedema specialist, but I think it's easier to find a lymphedema therapist than it is to find a burn or a wound care or an amputee therapist. Just a little bit easier. And yes, a lot of times the lymphedema is related to cancer diagnoses because of the radiation, sometimes due to chemotherapy, sometimes due to removal of lymph nodes, right? But there are cases of primary lymphedema. And you can actually go to some of these cancer centers and be treated by these therapists. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to be treated. Okay. That's a really good question, Susan. Can wearing a sleeve every day cause the thigh to atrophy and the knee as well? So if you mean like a suspension sleeve, the sleeve that goes over the prosthesis and it goes up towards your thigh to kind of hold the prosthesis on, there's actually been a couple of studies, and I need to refresh my memory on those studies, Susan. But in general, like if you have something, there's 2 ways of thinking about it. And this is probably something I need to read up on just a little bit more. Sometimes when you're pushing on the muscle, you can actually cue the muscle to contract. Other times, if you're pushing too much on the muscle, then you're preventing the muscle from contraction, right? So sometimes as physical therapists, we have a technique called neuromuscular facilitation, right? It's just a fancy word for saying, let's put some contact on that muscle to get it to wake up, right? When it comes to sockets, for example, this is probably a better example to use. When it comes to sockets, yes, in the above the knee socket, there is going to be a limitation, right? So the muscle is going to push up against the socket wall, and there's going to be a limitation as to how much it can contract, right? And we're seeing this in our osseointegration patients. So we've had Integrum on the show. They're the makers of the Oprah implant system for osseointegration, right? And because osseointegrated amputees do not use a socket, right? Their muscles are basically open to air. They're able to utilize and contract those muscles more efficiently, right? They have to work harder, right? Because they don't have the support of a socket, but they also means that those muscles get to work better and more efficiently. And I'm actually really excited to see those studies come out soon and see, just to see the comparison. As far as the sleeve, I don't think it's necessarily going to contribute to, huge amount of atrophy. The atrophy is going to happen because those muscles have been severed. So they're operating at a shorter length, and they've been attached in a different way, right? So the lever arm is just not the way it used to be. So that atrophy is going to happen. A certain amount of atrophy is going to happen. So Sean, yeah, that she tried to make her leg, and she tried to explain to her about Click Medical. And again, Sean, just refer her to the website. Like I said, their team is wonderful about answering questions, just to see what questions she might have about it. Absolutely. Okay. We got a lot of great questions coming in tonight, guys. So Steven says, I saw my amputee doctor, and the attending prosthetist was an AK with a skin fit socket, and talked to my prosthetist into trying for my flabby residual limb. So one is being made. What's your thought on skin fit for my issues? So skin fit, basically, I call it like the Jello mold. It's something that we used a lot more like in the 80s and the early 90s. So basically, it's just the residual limb going straight into a socket. No liner. It's skin right on socket. And it's exactly what the name says, skin fit. And it's a very, very snug, intimate fit. I do know a couple of people that still use skin fit. So one of my favorite people, his name's Greg Menino. He's an AK. He is a 22-time Paralympian and Olympian. The guy's a beast, and he's a prosthetist himself. And a phenomenal prosthetist. He wears a skin fit. He's been an amputee, I think, well over 30 years, and he likes the skin fit prosthesis. So a lot of it depends on the skill of the prosthetist, which, Stephen, if you're still with the prosthetist that I'm thinking of, you have a very good prosthetist, right? So the skill of the prosthetist is really key for skin fit prosthetic socket. And then also taking care of your skin, because your skin does take a little bit more of a beating here. So you need to take care of your skin. I know Greg uses a lot the Vital Fit skincare line, and he says it helps prevent him from having skin breakdown there. So David says, I know the adjustable socket is much better than the non-adjustable sockets I had earlier, and I have a few issues, but not much to scream about. Right. And guys, again, when it comes to the socket, and you've heard me beat this dead horse several times on this show, it's all about the comfort of the socket. Okay. Putting adjustability into the socket is not going to magically give comfort. It's the prosthetist building that socket, right? So the shape of the socket, the suspension of the socket, that has to be spot on. Putting adjustability in it is like putting the cherry on the topping sundae, right? You need a cherry on a sundae, right? But that's not what's going to give it the full comfort of the socket. Okay. If you have a socket that's not comfortable, putting adjustability in it is not going to magically make it comfortable. Adjustability, what that does is it takes away the headache of having to take your leg on and off several times a day to adjust for socks. Okay. And it gets it to have a really comfortable and snug fit. Okay. With the micro adjustability of that new click reel. Wonderful. Good luck, Starla. Okay. And Starla, thank you so much for all your messages. I really appreciate them. I am sorry to hear that, Emily. And again, I can't speak for all those places, but I'm sorry to hear that. So Jane says, I'm looking at OI. I'd be very curious to hear more about that, Jane. Keep me posted, Sean. Yes, Pam, you can find the books on the website that I typed out, and I'll go ahead and type it out again. Okay, so there is an above the knee book and there's a below the knee book that goes with all of the videos there. So for me, I like to learn several different ways. I like watching a video. I like reading a book and reading the description and seeing the pictures of the exercise as well. My patients are very similar. Some patients, well, Some of my patients, they like just watching the videos. Some of my patients just like reading the books. Some of them like them both. So it's all there on that one website for you. Yes. So the Click Medical website's very easy. It's clickmedical.co, not .com. It's .co for Colorado. Okay. So let me make sure. So Steven says, you saw him on my show a few times. Yeah. Click Medical's been on my show like for the past 2 years. Love their team. And they're coming back on the show actually August 9th. The maker of the RevoFit system, Joe Mahan, is going to come back on the show, and we're going to talk about suspension systems. So that's going to be a great show, guys, on August 9th, all about suspension systems. Okay. Oh, so Kim says, thank you, Kim, for letting us know. Kim says that she's a skin fit for 17 years. So Kim, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot, would you mind telling us like why you like it and you know, maybe a couple of pros and cons, if you don't mind putting that in the comment section. Tom, so good to see you. So good to see you. Glad you made it. All right, let me see if I can. Okay. So thank you, Drew, for putting that up there. Okay. So I think, here was an interesting question that came in, and I was just like, I really like this question. So this question that came in from Mike. Mike says, I'm not an amputee, but I had a large cancer surgery and my femoral nerve was engulfed in the recurring tumor and had to be removed. I lost the motion of my right leg and have been in rehab to walk with my hip. I'm permanently in a full leg brace and trying to transition from a walker to a cane. Can you address this transition sometime? I just found you today. Thank you. Okay. So like, even though Mike is not an amputee, you know, it's still a very applicable question. And here's why. And this is something I tell whenever I've had a physical therapy student observe with me. You know, I say to them, an amputee patient is not just an amputee patient. An amputee patient sometimes is also a burn patient. Sometimes is also a spinal cord injury patient. Sometimes is also a traumatic brain injury. Sometimes an orthopedic injuries. Sometimes a little bit of everything. And I've had a couple of complicated patients like that. Okay. So some of you might have your amputation on one side, but you're experiencing issues on the other side. Others, like Emily has shared with us, you know, she has the below the knee amputation and she also has spina bifida, right? So there's a lot of combined impairments that can sometimes happen. Okay. So in this case, his femoral nerve was kaput. Okay. So basically your femoral nerve is in charge of your hip flexion. So bringing your knee up and knee extension. And those are kind of big ones for stabilizing yourself for walking. Okay. So in his case, he's having to use a brace to walk. And if it's a brace that I'm thinking of, it's the kind of brace where your knee is placed in a straight position. Okay. So it's kind of like those of you who have a prosthesis where the knee does not bend. Okay. So in essence, he's kind of walking. I hate to use this phrase, but it'll kind of get you to understand. It's like a dead leg. The leg is there, but it's not functional, right? So he's having to keep it in a brace the whole time, and think of it as a prosthesis where the knee doesn't bend. Now, when it comes to this kind of, you know, when you have nerve damage, like there's nothing left there, then your focus as a physical therapist, let me not knock down my computer. That not be good. No. Okay, so your focus as a physical therapist is strengthening the other leg, strengthening that core, and getting the balance to work. Okay. Now, is it possible for someone who has a leg that's not functional to be able to walk with a cane? Yes, but they have to be really, really strong and they have to have very, very good balance. Okay, because at some point, if you're using a cane, your weight has to be transferred to that leg that's not functional. And even though it's in a brace, you have to know how to place that leg and how to position the rest of your body to move your weight forward without having that leg give out underneath you. So it's a very, very careful, very meticulous gait training process. Okay. So it sounds like you are on a walker. So for someone like yourself, Mike, I would put you back into the parallel bars where you're in a very safe environment and teach you how to walk using a 3-point gait pattern, meaning the cane goes first, the leg with the brace, and then your sound leg. So it's a 1, 2, 3 pattern, and that would be the most stable pattern. And before a cane, it might be that they put you on a hemi walker, which is a bit more stable. It's a one-handed device, right? So it gives you a little more freedom compared to a walker, but it has 4 legs on the ground, so it's more stability there. Excuse me, guys, I need to take a sip of my drink. Okay. So, and there's some of you who have, a prosthetic device that perhaps the knee does not bend, or perhaps you don't have the strength yet to activate that knee, and you're looking at similar things. Okay. So whenever you're trying something like transitioning from a walker to a cane, I usually go back to the parallel bars to do some work there first, and then progress the person outside the bars. But yes, it is possible. It is possible. And it's something that you have to work closely with your PT. I would imagine, Emily, that it's a KFO and possibly going up closer to his hip, because his hip muscles are also not there. When it comes to orthotics, I am not as savvy as I am with prosthetic devices. I wasn't a huge fan of my orthotics course. It was just one of those parts about physical therapy that I was like, I'm not a huge fan of orthotics. Love prosthetics, not so much on orthotics. But yeah, I imagine it's definitely going to be a KFO with a locked knee, and something that extends up to the hip to give it some stability as well. So Kelly asks, as a below the knee amputee, my knee feels like it wants to buckle at times. What can I do to secure it better? It's a scary feeling, and I worry that I'm not going to get this, and it seems like a lot. Kelly, it's perfectly normal to feel overwhelmed. And the words of my mentor always come back to me. You are a normal human who is reacting in a very normal way to a very abnormal situation. Okay. And I like to kind of just stop sometimes my newer patients who are starting to get overwhelmed and just remind them of that. And this also comes from personal experience, Kelly. I'm a recent breast cancer survivor. So even though I didn't lose a limb, I do understand what it's like to have to go through a very intense recovery process, and having that feeling of being overwhelmed and wondering if you're going to be able to handle it. Okay. What happened in terms of losing your limb, that's not a normal thing to happen. We are not created to lose a limb. We're not created to grow cancer. That's not part of the normal of how our human bodies are made, right? So to have something like this dramatic happen to you, whether you have cancer, whether you've had a spinal cord injury, whether you've had a missing limb, that's a lot to process. And then the physical trauma from it as well. I can tell you this, Kelly, you've probably seen videos already online of people who are in the Paralympics, people who are running, people who are swimming and doing all these activities, and you thinking, oh my gosh, this, that's too much. All of those folks started where you are right now. They all started in that same position. And we have such an amazing group of people here on this show that hopefully they'll chime in and back me up on this. And when they say, those that are walking independently and getting back into their adaptive sports and really just getting out there and being in the community, they all started here, and they all felt that feeling of being overwhelmed. Okay. This is where you really need to communicate with your physical therapist and your prosthetist. For your physical therapist, I want you to just explain to them, just saying, I am feeling so overwhelmed right now, and I need to see what's the next step. Okay. Another thing I tell my patients when they're getting that feeling of being overwhelmed, don't think about how am I going to walk independently? Like, that goal right now for you, that goal's a little bit further down the line. Okay. You need to break it down into bite-sized pieces. Okay. And you just need to think to yourself, what is my goal this week? What is it that I need to accomplish this week? And if that's too much, then you need to say to yourself, okay, what's the goal that I need to accomplish by the end of this treatment? Okay. And this is where, as physical therapists, we shine. This is how we construct. This is how our brains work. And I say this, I'm smiling because I take this into my mom life, into my life as a housewife. We take the big goals that seem impossible and we put them into small bite-sized pieces, and we build upon it. And it makes it a little less overwhelming. So ask your physical therapist, because I know that your physical therapist in their plan of care, they've written out goals for you. They've written out short-term goals and they've written out long-term goals. It's part of our documentation. ask them to share those goals with you and see if they align with what your goals are, right? And ask them to explain to you how are they going to help you reach those goals. Okay. So if there's one thing that you want to focus on, Kelly, is start building the foundation. Okay. And you have to start simple. Your brain can only focus on one thing: weight shifting exercises. That's something that your physical therapist has probably given you. Okay. Focus on just getting those foundational exercises and learning how to do them well and to do them efficiently and become confident in that. And then you slowly start building upon that. Okay. And like I said, feel free to email me any of your questions. I'm here every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And yes, that was a shameless plug. You can also go to my YouTube channel, another shameless plug, but there's a lot of really good videos and information there on the YouTube channel as well. All right. All right, let's see. Okay. And guys, if I miss any of your questions tonight, I do apologize. Please email them to me and I will be sure to cover them in next week's session. If for whatever reason I don't get to your question tonight, I'm trying to make sure I don't miss anything, but sometimes that happens. So Kim says, going back to Kim, who uses a skin fit socket, she says, the socks were just too much for me. Liner was uncomfortable and the secret is a really good socket fit. Amen to that. Absolutely. So Emily says, I have the KFOs. I have friends that had the hip KFOs and stopped walking because it was just too difficult. It is pretty cumbersome. I'm not going to lie. Those full length braces can be very, very cumbersome. And yes, to not have the hip flexion, that's a tough one, because then the person basically has to use momentum from their lower back and has to use a little bit of their lower back to help propel that non-functional leg forward. Yeah, that's a tough one. Phil says, my clinic up here in Saskatchewan has Martin Bionics coming here to train them with their sockets. They require a minimum of 3 test patients to come up here to train the prosthetist. Right. And Martin Bionics is another adjustable socket system. Full disclosure, I am not as familiar with Martin Bionics. I've not had a chance to work with their team, but their model is a little bit different. So for Martin Bionics, if you want a Martin Bionics socket, you have to go to a Martin Bionics clinic. Meaning it's a clinic that's owned by Martin Bionics, and the prosthetists there are specially trained to make that particular kind of socket. Let's see. Stephen, my pleasure. So Sean says, Cosi's right. We all started the same way. Baby steps, only do what makes you comfortable. My pleasure, Kelly. And again, don't be shy about coming back to the show. Don't be shy. Thank you, compadre. I appreciate you sticking around, man. So David says, I have a Martin Bionics leg and I love it. Good. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to get through all and make sure I don't miss any of these questions. My pleasure, Chuck. Starla said, I had to realize I wasn't going to be like a lizard and I wasn't going to get my leg back. I know. And that's part of and Kelly, I don't know where you are in your emotional and spiritual recovery, but when it comes to recovery, I always say it's 3 things. It's physical, emotional, and spiritual. And you have to address all 3 aspects. And in many cases, it's a lifelong journey. Like I said, my cancer journey started 7 years ago. And I'm still learning from it and I'm still healing from it. And that's something that it gets better every day. And I know that tomorrow will be better than today. And today was not as good. Today is better than yesterday was. Okay. And to address all 3 and to reach out for the support. That's another big thing right there, is make sure that you have the people that you can talk to, whether it's a support group, whether it's a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a counselor, someone that you can continue to talk to. The Amputee Coalition Peer Visitor Program is probably one of my favorite resources for this. So if you haven't heard of the Amputee Coalition, they are the amputee organization in the United States. It's a non-for-profit organization, huge, and they have what's called a certified peer visitor program. So you can request to have someone from your area come and talk to you. And these are amputees, only amputees, not people like me who are clinicians, but are not, it's only amputees. And they are specially trained to go out into their community and talk to and help counsel newer amputees and kind of help guide them through that journey. So it's a wonderful, wonderful resource. So Kelly, if you're interested in learning more about that, let me know and I'll be happy to send you that information. Okay. Whew. All right, guys, this has been an awesome show. And by the way, I love seeing all the new faces. I love seeing all my old faces. I love seeing a mixture of both. So guys, those of you who have been supporting me on social media by answering the questions that I put out there, the polls, the stories, interacting, thank you so much. That helps my sponsors see how much engagement there is with the show, how much there is a need for the show, and how much there is a need to help continue supporting the show. So thank you guys. And guys, keep your eyes peeled. I think next week's topic is going to be about low back pain. So keep your eyes peeled on social media. Again, if you have the chance, go take a look at my Strong Body program. There's over 150 exercise videos for above the knee and below the knee amputees, for beginners, all the way out through the athlete level. And then there's 2 books that go along with it. So if you get the chance, guys, take a look at the program, see what you think. All right, guys, as always, thank you for letting me be a part of your lives this evening. I will see you guys next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. God bless, guys.